Harvey Eugene Whitacre, who went by Gene, was born in Kokomo, Indiana, on October 6, 1926. He was a very responsible and disciplined young man. He grew up on a farm with numerous siblings, with whom he was close, and worked as a typesetter for the local newspaper. He joined the Army shortly after he graduated high school. He managed to rise to the rank of corporal in under 2 years. In the summer of 1947, 20-year-old Gene was in the Engineer Corps, assigned to the Armed Forces Special Weapons Project at the top-secret Sandia Base, which was located on the outskirts of Albuquerque, New Mexico. Gene failed to report for roll call on the morning of July 1, 1947. This immediately signaled trouble to his superiors, as Gene was a dependable soldier who they could not imagine abandoning his duties. Gene did not smoke or drink, and had never gone absent without leave before. The previous evening, Gene had been at a bowling alley in Albuquerque with an Army bowling league. He was an above-average bowler, and because he was so trustworthy, he was made the treasurer of the league. 2 days after Gene went missing, his glasses, shirt, hat, and necktie were found in an alley near the bowling alley. The shirt was bloody. Tears in the fabric indicated that Gene may have been stabbed twice in the back while he was still wearing the shirt. While some of his belongings had been found, there was still no sign of Gene himself, or of his body. It was estimated that Gene had between $400 and $500 with him the night he vanished, because of his role as the treasurer of the bowling league. However, the fact that Gene's body was not left behind, even if he had been killed during a simple robbery, and his position within the military, led to concerns that his disappearance may have had national security implications. The Armed Forces Special Weapons Project had taken over atomic weapons development from the Manhattan Project following World War II. Sandia was a top-secret base, meaning Gene potentially had access to important and sensitive information. This led to fears that Gene had been abducted by someone who was hoping to extract top-secret information about the base or its projects from him. Gene reportedly had done work connected to the top-secret guided missile program. Spy activities had recently been discovered at the nearby base at Los Alamos. As such, the FBI joined local and military authorities in investigating the disappearance. The War Department ultimately dismissed the possibility that Gene had information worth killing for, but the FBI remained actively investigating the case for several more years. Investigators also considered the possibility that Gene had deserted. They questioned his family members and tapped their phones, hoping to find evidence of Gene contacting them. The last piece of correspondence between Gene and anyone in his family was a letter he sent to his sister Rose, but it was dated June 23rd, a week before he disappeared. Gene's bank account in Indiana was monitored, but never touched. Gene was declared legally dead in January of 1954. Many, but not all of his relatives, accepted the theory that he had been murdered during a robbery. His niece, Patty Mawson, however, believes that the circumstances surrounding her uncle's disappearance are highly suspicious, and continues to work on his case to this day. She is upset that all of Gene's siblings died without knowing what happened to him, and by the fact that he is still technically considered AWOL and a deserter by the Army. She has filed a Freedom of Information Act request to get files from the FBI about the case, and told that approximately 200 pages from his file are available, although the copies she will receive will have certain information redacted. However, she has been waiting for more than 3 years to receive the documents, and has been told that there are 485 requests ahead of hers that have to be fulfilled first. The items of Gene's that were found in the alley also appear to have gone missing. They were never logged into evidence with police in Albuquerque, and federal agencies do not appear to have record of where they are. In addition to getting answers about what happened to her uncle, Patty hopes to locate these items. If she cannot honor her uncle by finding his remains and giving him a proper burial, she hopes to at least bury these items so that there will be a location where Gene can be memorialized. "17-year-old Yvonne Regler lived in Lorain, Ohio, and was a student at North Olmsted High School. Her best friend was her brother Dan, who was only a year apart from her in age. On August 8, 1977, Yvonne reported for work at the Sunoco gas station on Lorraine Road in North Olmsted, Ohio. She was only at the station for about an hour before she was asked to work instead at a station approximately 3 miles away in Fairview Park. The attendant working there that morning was a mechanic, and his skills were needed at the North Olmsted station. Yvonne did not have a car, so one of her coworkers drove her to the other station. At the time, the station in Fairview Park was transitioning from being full service to self-service. On this particular day, only one gas pump was operational and was full service. At 10:30 that morning, Yvonne spoke to one of her friends on the phone. They discussed the upcoming funeral they were attending for the father of one of their friends, and the dress Yvonne had purchased for the service. Despite the somber topic of conversation, the friend reported that Yvonne was in good spirits during this call. Yvonne then had another conversation over the phone about the funeral, this time with one of her family members at 11 a.m. The manager at the North Olmsted station dropped off lunch for Yvonne at noon, and half an hour later, 2 teenage girls saw her at the gas station. Yvonne spoke to her friend on the phone again sometime between 12:30 and 1 p.m. The friend could hear the service bell ding over the line, and Yvonne told them that a car had driven through but left the station. The friend heard the bell sound again, and Yvonne told them that the same car was back. Yvonne then said that she would call the friend again after her shift ended at 3 o'clock. Yvonne initialed the receipt when a customer used a credit card to buy gas at 1:25 p.m. Between 1:30 and 2:05, 3 people, 2 customers, and a coffee machine repairman came into the station and found no one there. They were not alarmed, however, and did not contact police. The employee who came to take over for Yvonne when her shift ended was alarmed, however, when he arrived at 2:45. Yvonne was nowhere to be found, but her purse, partially eaten lunch, cigarettes, and book were still there. He called over to the North Olmsted station, and the manager, who had seen Yvonne less than 3 hours earlier, rushed over to help look for her. When he and the other employee could not find her, they called police at 3:30. There were no signs of a struggle inside the station, and there was still $300 in cash in the register. Police theorized that Yvonne had been abducted while she was outside, potentially when she had gone out to pump a customer's gas. More than 100 tips were investigated in the following years. Local, state, and federal law enforcement agencies were involved in the investigation. Numerous persons of interest were identified, but without finding Yvonne or her body, police could only theorize about what had potentially been done to her. Years and then decades passed without any answers in the case. The passage of time did not diminish Yvonne's family's desire for answers. In 2014, one of her family members asked to provide a DNA sample so that Yvonne's remains could be identified should they ever be located. This led to a renewed effort by authorities in the investigation. Police went back and re-interviewed all of the witnesses in the case. In 2016, on the 39th anniversary of Yvonne's disappearance, the Fairview Park Police Department announced that during this process, they had identified a potential person of interest in the case. This man was known to police and had previously been connected to crimes of a similar nature to Yvonne's case. Police made this news public in hopes of encouraging new witnesses to come forward with tips that could potentially help them confirm or refute this individual's involvement in Yvonne's disappearance. The effort did not result in the case being solved. In 2021, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children released an age-progressed image of what Yvonne may look like at the age of 62. Everyone is doing what they need to be doing on the police side. On my side, all I can do is hope that there will be closure, Yvonne's brother Dan said in 2022. "29-year-old Veda Lou Powers was a dependable employee of St. Thomas West Hospital in Nashville, Tennessee, and the dedicated mother of 2 children. She was very close with her family and was always willing to help them. Veda began May 26, 1982 as normal, sticking to her usual routine. She left her home on 9th Avenue South and dropped her children off at daycare. She then drove over to her sister's house to pick her up and give her a ride to her job at the Continental Insurance office. It was at this point in the morning where Veda began deviating from her routine. During the drive to the insurance office, Veda told her sister that she had taken the day off from work, so instead of driving to the hospital after dropping her off, she would be going home and going back to bed. Veda's sister would be the last known person to see her. Veda did not pick up her children from daycare that afternoon, which was unheard of for her. Her family was notified, and the search for her quickly began. She was not at home, and neither was her car, an orange 1975 Chevrolet Monza. A formal police report was taken on May 28th, and police joined the search. Veda's car was located on May 30th, abandoned on 14th Street South near Edge Hill Avenue, just a few blocks away from her home. According to police, the location was unusual, and it appeared that someone had tried to conceal the car so that it would not be found right away. Veda's purse and eyeglasses were found inside the vehicle. This was concerning, because Veda had very poor eyesight and relied heavily on her glasses. The glasses being left behind led police to believe that foul play was involved in Veda's disappearance. Police do have a person of interest in the case, but not enough evidence to conclusively tie him to Veda's disappearance. The month of May continues to be difficult for Veda's two children, because it marks the anniversary of her disappearance, as well as her birthday and Mother's Day. Veda's daughter, Yolanda, who was just 9 years old when her mother went missing, continues to search for her mother, and hopes that anyone who knew her mother at the time she vanished, or has even the smallest piece of information, will come forward. I'm just keeping it positive. Every day the Lord wakes me up is a day for me to try and find her, Yolanda said in 2023. Jason Knapp was a native of York, Pennsylvania. He was hardworking and smart. He was also a perfectionist from a young age, once crying for 3 days because he got a bad grade on a test in elementary school. As he got older, his commitment to excellence quickly paid off. He played 3 sports in high school and had lots of friends, to whom he was very loyal. He was accepted into the mechanical engineering program at Clemson University in South Carolina. He was a member of the ROTC, and in 1998, 20-year-old Jason was pledged into the National Society of Pershing Rifles, a national military honor society. His hobbies also required a great amount of skill, as he enjoyed target shooting and mountain biking. Jason normally called back home to speak to his mother Deborah in Pennsylvania every day. During their call on Saturday, April 11th, 1998, he told her about his induction into the Pershing Rifles and how he and a friend had been out looking for an apartment. This would be the last time Deborah spoke to her son. Deborah did not get any calls from her son in the next few days, which was unusual, but she assumed he was busy studying in preparation for the end of the semester and making arrangements for his housing in the following school year. On April 17th, Deborah finally received a phone call, but it was not from Jason. It was from one of his roommates, informing her that no one had seen Jason all week. The last time anyone had seen Jason was the day he last spoke to his mother, Saturday, April 11th. That evening, his roommate had seen him watching a movie in their apartment. When Deborah learned of this, she immediately called police in South Carolina to report her son missing. Police officers checked local hospitals and searched Jason's apartment. The following day, Deborah and her ex-husband, Jason's father John, traveled from Pennsylvania to South Carolina to help look for their son. On April 21st, Jason's white 1990 Chevrolet Beretta was reported to police as being parked at Table Rock State Park in Pickens, South Carolina, approximately 30 miles away from his college campus. According to the park superintendent, they had not contacted the police earlier despite the fact that the car had been there since April 12th, because there was a trail within the park that took a full week to complete. Since there was a sticker on Jason's car indicating that he was in ROTC, park staff had assumed he would have had interest in hiking such a long trail, and the physical strength and skills needed to complete it. Even when the car remained untouched after a week, they believed that its owner may have been too tired to drive after completing the long hike and had gotten a ride home and planned to come back for the car at a later time. When the car was still there on the 9th day, however, they became concerned and notified the authorities, who quickly connected the car to the active missing persons case. Authorities believe Jason entered the park between 3 and 5 p.m. on Sunday, April 12th, the day after his last phone conversation with his mother. His fingerprints were found on the park ticket, so they do believe Jason was the person who drove his car to the location. Table Rock State Park consists of thousands of acres, and much of it is wilderness. An extensive search was launched in the park, and a nearby lake was drained. No signs of Jason were found despite the massive effort, which took more than 2 weeks. Police say there were no signs of foul play in the park or in Jason's car. Jason withdrew $20 from his bank account the day before he disappeared, and his bank account has not been touched since. In 2017, Jason's parents made the difficult decision to have Jason declared legally dead. His father John's health was declining, and his mother had medical issues as well. They hoped that the process would give them a chance to say goodbye to Jason before they passed away. The process was completed in January of 2018. A memorial marker was installed for Jason at Susquehanna Memorial Garden in his hometown. Jason's father John passed away in 2019. Even 25 years after his disappearance, investigative efforts to find Jason are ongoing. In 2022, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children released a new image of what Jason may look like today. Jason's mother, Deborah, had a bench installed in Jason's name at the Botanical Gardens at Clemson. She travels there yearly to remember her son and write him a letter as part of her efforts to cope with his disappearance. She still hopes she will find answers about what became of her son within her lifetime. Pamela Holopainen grew up in the South Porcupine neighborhood of Timmins, a mining town in northern Ontario. Her mother, Holly Kautuk, was Inuit, and her family was originally from Nunavut. Like many Indigenous individuals in Canada, Holly was sent to a boarding school. She arrived at the school at the age of 14, and a year later she became pregnant with Pamela's older sister, Vanessa Brousseau. Pamela was born 2 years after Vanessa. Holly did her best to actively raise her daughters in their Inuit culture and teach them to embrace their heritage in their daily lives as much as possible. Since there were no other Inuit in Timmins, she was also active in the local Indigenous community, the Cree. Holly would eventually become the president of the Timmins Native Friendship Center. Pamela and Vanessa were very close growing up and relied heavily on one another. They grew up in poverty and therefore had very few toys, so they used their imaginations to make up games and activities together. Pamela was outgoing and outspoken. She had a big personality, which was also reflected in how deeply she cared for others and the great lengths she would go to help anyone who needed anything. Pamela left school prior to graduating high school so she could go to work. Following a brief stint as a waitress, she found a job in a call center where she excelled. By 2003, 22-year-old Pamela had a common-law spouse with whom she had 2 sons. She was a devoted mother. Pamela and Vanessa remained close as adults, and it was common for them to speak multiple times a day. On December 13th, 2003, Pamela asked Vanessa if she could babysit her 2 boys that night. Vanessa was unable to, so Pamela made other arrangements. Vanessa went to Pamela's house on December 15th, but no one was home. She continued visiting the house over the next few days to see her sister and drop off Christmas presents for her nephews, but no one was ever at the house. Vanessa assumed that they had gone to spend Christmas with Pamela's common-law spouse's family. Pamela did not call Vanessa on Christmas Day, which Vanessa was very upset about. On December 26th, Vanessa was able to speak with Pamela's landlord. They had not seen the family either. At this point, Vanessa was still under the assumption that her sister was with her common-law spouse's family, and simply failing to call her. Vanessa learned that she was wrong on New Year's Eve. That day, Vanessa and her mother were at a bingo hall when a woman came up to them and asked if they had heard about Pamela. They said they did not, and the woman told them that Pamela had left her common-law spouse. Vanessa and Holly then asked where Pamela's children were. They were still with their father. This was an immediate indication that something was not right to Vanessa and Holly. It was conceivable that Pamela would leave her spouse. There was not even a remote possibility, however, that Pamela would go anywhere without her sons. Vanessa and Holly went to police to report Pamela missing. While they made the report as soon as they realized that something was wrong, it had been more than 2 weeks since anyone had seen Pamela. She had attended a house party on the evening of December 13th and had left it in the early morning hours of the 14th after reportedly getting into an argument with her common-law spouse and saying she would walk home. Police were not concerned about Pamela's disappearance, telling Vanessa and Holly that Pamela was probably out drinking and would reappear in a few days, a conclusion with no supporting evidence. Vanessa and Holly, understandably frustrated by this disregard for Pamela's well-being, began their own search, organizing friends and family members to create and distribute flyers, and to search for Pamela. 4 months after Pamela went missing, when police finally began investigating Pamela's disappearance, they told her family that they believed Pamela was a sex worker in Hamilton, Ontario. They supported this claim with 2 nude pictures Pamela had taken of herself, presumably for her common-law spouse, that had been found on her personal computer. The case was eventually taken over by the Ontario Provincial Police, but the investigator assigned to the case faced allegations of attempted murder and arson, and spent time in jail. In 2013, the case was sent back to police in Timmins, who told Pamela's sister Vanessa that the case was not active. Pamela's mother Holly passed away on December 31st, 2007, exactly 4 years to the day after she reported her daughter missing to police. Vanessa Brousseau continues to advocate and search for her sister. She is active on social media, sharing her sister's story, as well as stories of the challenges facing Indigenous people in Canada.